One point I keep trying to emphasize when talking about fanfiction is that it often follows its own continuity, but this time we're looking at a story called The Seventh Star by Mr. Page, which actually tries to weave its way into the show's canon, offering deeper explanations for things that we've already seen. It begins right at the end of Magical Mystery Cure with Twilight's coronation. It starts occurring to Spike that with Twilight becoming a princess, she'll probably be given all sorts of servants to attend to her every need, effectively putting him out of a job. By the time Twilight takes off for her first flight, he begins taking a sad walk around the castle. He takes a moment to look at the stained glass windows depicting the battles with Nightmare Moon and Discord, reflecting on the fact that he isn't in either of them because he was either asleep at the time or couldn't use the elements of harmony. But then he stops at his window, the one showing him as a hero, retrieving the Crystal Heart and helping to save the Crystal Empire. But that seems even more troubling because to him, it feels like he was only helping Twilight achieve her goal, passing her test, and he really only handed the Crystal Heart off to Cadence anyway. He finally wanders outside, probably while humming a Linkin Park song, and sees all of his friends at a garden party. He tries to mentally project all of his angsty angst at them, and then runs back inside looking for a corner to cry in. Eventually, Twilight catches up to him and tries to find out what's wrong. Spike then gives a very long, tearful speech leading up to some incredibly important thing that he has to tell her. And all of this is from Spike's point of view, so Twilight is probably standing there thinking, wait a minute, what's going on? Is he about to come out of the closet? Holy crap, does he already have a boyfriend? Is it Big Macintosh? How would that even work? But finally, Spike tells her everything that's been on his mind lately, so Twilight can finally say, "Oh, Spike, you crazy bitch, I'm never getting rid of you." Considering they've known each other their whole lives, she points out that just having him around as a friend is more important than anything a servant could do. It's even part of what inspired her to solve the Cutie Mark mix-up and finish Star Swirl the Bearded's final spell. And as for the Crystal Empire thing, Sombra totally would have taken over if Spike hadn't been there, so what kind of friend or princess would Twilight be if she just kicked him out? She then reveals that she's been facing some doubt in herself over being a princess, especially since there's almost no one she can turn to for advice, except for the other princesses of course, but she doesn't really see them that often. But then Spike says, "Oh, don't worry, Twilight, all those things that you have perfectly legitimate concerns about will turn out just fine, precisely because of all the things that you're worried about. Somehow." And Twilight says, "Okay, cool. Well, I guess I'll be going since you don't need me anymore." God damn it, Spike, I just spent a quarter of the story explaining why I wasn't getting rid of you. Really? Wait, why am I not being fired again? I'm starting to wonder that myself. Anyway, come here and I'll explain what the story's title means. Now look at my cutie mark and tell me how many stars are there. 6. Oh, isn't that cute? But it's wrong! You see, there are actually 7 stars, and here's how that's supposed to work. The big pink star represents Twilight, while the 5 smaller stars represent her Ponyville friends. But then the white parts peeking out around the edge of the center star are actually part of another star behind it that represents Spike. So of course she won't get rid of him if he's part of her cutie mark, and that's about it. Spike calms down, they both go back out to the party, and everyone goes up to Spike and says, "Dude, the hell's your problem today?" Now, to be completely fair, a lot of this story's ideas are interesting, like having Spike ask Twilight if she considered him to be her friend before coming to Ponyville, since she always insisted that she had no friends before. And aside from the occasional typo that makes me imagine Spike being played by Squiscar Squigelf, the writing here is very descriptive and has been earning mostly positive reviews on fanfiction.net. My main concern here is that Spike's internal conflict doesn't actually seem to be based on anything. No one ever says anything to Spike about Twilight getting new servants, when or if that'll ever happen. He just comes to that conclusion on his own and then spends half the story moping and walking around by himself. It seems like the story is trying to recreate the conflict from All's Well That Ends Well, which actually gets referenced here, but the difference is, in that episode, you could see Aloysius doing Spike's job better and getting positive attention from the main 6, while Spike mostly went ignored. So even though Spike was wrong, you could still see where his insecurity was coming from. But wait, I hear you say, it's common knowledge that those in positions of royalty get assigned all sorts of servants and assistants, so even if no one told Spike about it, it's still reasonable to assume that he could figure it out for himself. Well, theoretical commenter, you have a point, but Spike's motivation here still bothered me. Now, if the story was set in some alternate reality where Spike really was in danger of losing his job, that might make it more compelling, but again, it's set more or less in the show's universe, which means everyone has to be believably in character. And whenever someone else is around, it always seems clear that they still see Spike in the same way they always have, and they genuinely have no idea why he's upset. And besides, if you're familiar with the show, then you already know Twilight's never gonna give Spike up, she's never gonna let him down, she's never gonna run around and desert him. Oh my god, the story just rickrolled me! All joking aside, this looks to be the author's first ever story that was put on fanfiction.net, and I really believe that for anyone creating content, just being able to put your work out there is the most important thing you could possibly do. Despite how harsh I'm being towards this story, it's not my intention to discourage anyone from sharing their work, especially when there's genuine potential, which there is. I really appreciate it when a fanfiction shows extra effort in remaining faithful to the source material, and like I said, the writing style itself is very good. This particular story just wasn't for me. Although Spike certainly has no shortage of reasons to feel bad, especially with recent episodes, the segments of the show where he unnecessarily overreacts like a giant crybaby tend to be my least favorite parts. I always prefer it when a character's personal issues feel more externally justified, and aside from saying that he probably could have been doing his job better sometimes, this story really didn't do that for me. There were also some pacing issues, with quite a few segments dragging on longer than they needed to. As for whether I would recommend it, no, I'm sorry, I personally wouldn't. But like I said, it's mostly been getting positive reviews, so if you're in the mood for a Spike story that's kinda sad just for the sake of being sad, then maybe the other issues I had won't be a big deal for you.